with regards to not recognising my team, Pep Guardiola said, I don't recognise them. I'm not going to tell you what I said at half-time, but I want a reaction from all the club. I want to beat Arsenal, he says. But if we play in that way, Arsenal will destroy us. I know he also had said, Cass, in some of his post-match to other media outlets, he said, playing with this lack of passion this season, I can announce we are not going to win anything. When you heard those comments from Pep Guardiola, were you surprised by this rant? Because like we mentioned briefly at the top of the show, you know, to come back from being 2-0 down and to win 4-2 and be quite exciting in that second half, you think a lot of people will be like, yeah, brilliant, plaudits all round, loads of applause. But that wasn't what we heard from Pep Guardiola. Yeah,
it's a little bit masking over a problem. You know, like when we saw Spurs come from behind on regular basis, where Antonio Conte was probably thinking, why do my team keep doing this? And we keep going behind. And yes, we have incredible courage and fight back and win games. And I think Pep knows that you beat them at the Etihad. Mm-hmm. Everton got a draw there, suffered a lot in the game, but got a draw. But it's quite clear now that if you can defend well, you've got a chance against City. I thought Man United showed that. Man United didn't have to play particularly well. If you play City, you know you've got to be absolutely on your game in every department, everything you do in a game to get a result. Man United didn't need to do that. They'd done enough to get over the line. And yes, there was a controversial decision, but it didn't feel like City. Watching City at Old Trafford didn't feel like watching City. And I think what Pep's done, he's looked at his team and just come away with, this ain't right. We're not quite where we need to be. And just a reality check of the way he sees things.
Well, why is it not going right, do you think?
Well, he's made a huge amount of changes in recent weeks. You know, in the game in midweek against Spurs, you know, you looked at the City bench, it was laughable. It was just ridiculous the level of player that, you know, they could bring on, from Foden to De Bruyne to Kyle Walker and others. And, you know, he is spoiled with a luxury of players. He definitely. And maybe he does feel, and I sort of feel City. I mean, I said a while back and talked about Arsenal possibility. I don't feel what City are as good as last year.
Now, is that because they're having to change their style because of Haaland, or is that nothing to do with it?
No, I don't think. You know, if they'd have thought, well, look, going into the third week of Jan, and a guy's got 21 league goals for us, then he obviously isn't a problem. Their way of playing was a bit pedestrian, and I looked at them, and it was a very Spain-like, watching them in the World Cup, where keep, move, ball in, and overplaying too much. You know, one thing they did, and especially De Bruyne, the killer pass. They could always find that. Whoever was on the ball, whether it was Gundogan, De Bruyne, you know, Bernardo Silva, they haven't quite been there this year. And I think Pep is obviously, he'd look at numbers and he'd look at chances created, and I think he would probably think, we're just not quite on our game. And if we're really going to challenge Arsenal, we've got to become the City where we could go in 10 games. They don't feel like that to me. I know people say this, you know, they're capable of winning 10 games on the bounce, which they are. But I don't feel like this team is at the moment.
Some managers can be outspoken and it's fine. They can get away with it. Other managers can be outspoken and they can lose their job, because we saw that with Scott Parker at the start of this season. Now, there obviously may have been rumblings on behind the scenes that we don't know about that might have led to already fractures between Parker and his relationship with members of the board, for example. But we've seen a lot of managers, successful managers this season, really sort of losing their rag at times. You know, Jurgen Klopp has not been happy. Antonio Conte, like you've already mentioned, clearly not happy with things at Spurs as well. Are you surprised that we're seeing some of these really experienced managers who are maybe, and maybe this is answering the question in itself, but serial winners really just being so angry in some of their post-matches, and sometimes it's not even their post-match, it's pre-match before the match has even happened.
If you look at basics of it, Nat, if you said where are the best managers in the world, you'd say, well, a lot of them in the Premier League. Mm-hmm. Right, so there's a huge amount of managers who are hugely successful in their careers, and some of them are finding it hard not to be successful. How do you think Antonio Conte is feeling at the moment? He's won everywhere. Yeah. He's won with Chelsea, he's won with Inter, he's won with Juventus, and he's coming to a club that he thinks he can change and win, and he can't at the moment. So he's obviously really frustrated. and is trying to spin plates with his team. You know, because we have such a high-quality manager level in the Premier League, there's going to be failure. There's 6 great clubs, you know, or the biggest clubs. They are all vying for 4 positions, but you'd probably all argue they all think they should win it or could win it. And they're battling away. And there is a rookie manager in Arteta at the moment that's pounced in between everybody. His first job. So imagine if he wins the Premier League with his first job. And he's quite comfortable at the moment. All is rosy. Now, it changes really quickly at football clubs. We've seen it before, from teams getting out of relegation and getting mid-table or dropping into it, trying to win the league, being a Champions League team. So I think a manager in the Premier League is a really tough gig now. And look, don't get me wrong. I don't undermine, because being a manager in League One, League Two and Conference and blah, 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 that's as tough as it comes, because you don't get the same sort of finance.
Yeah.
But these guys are battling. These are big egos that are finding the Premier League for them can be really frustrating.
Oh, this season in general.
It's been crazy.
It has. Some of the results.
They've all combusted, didn't they? I mean, I'm watching Jurgen Klopp. You know, look at what Jurgen Klopp, his 1000th game and what he's done in his career. And he's shell-shocked, I'm sure, about how this Liverpool team, and yes, with injuries as well, has struggled.
Game Day Breakfast with Natalie Sawyer and Tony Cascarino. Saturday mornings from 6 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.